All right, so you're here because, let's be honest, keeping up with everything that matters is, well, it's a lot these days. And honestly, right now, few things matter more than the future of our planet, right? I
What?
mean, climate change is the big one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everywhere you look, but
It's easy to get bogged down in the problems.
yeah, doom scrolling.
Yeah, exactly. But today we're doing something different. This is about solutions. This deep dive, we're taking a look at the science that's actually tackling this head on. And we've got some really fascinating sources.
Yeah, the future of our planet. Science's boldest moves against climate change.
Catchy title, right? But seriously, the innovations, the discoveries, it's actually pretty inspiring.
I mean, it's crucial to understand, right, that like the potential consequences of inaction are, well, there's significant like rising sea levels, extreme weather events,
Mm.
biodiversity loss. It's all there.
It's serious stuff, but
But the material highlights the fact that science is stepping up and offering some genuinely proactive responses to this challenge.
it's not all doom and gloom, right? We're talking about tangible ways to move forward.
Hmm.
And one of the areas that's really grabbed my attention, and I'm sure you've heard this term before, but carbon capture and storage, CCS.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about here?
It's essentially about capturing CO2 from those
Yeah.
major sources, you know, power plants, industrial facilities, and then preventing it from reaching the atmosphere. Right?
Yeah.
So instead of letting it just sort of waft out there,
Yeah.
we capture it and store it often underground.
So it's like a giant vacuum cleaner for CO2.
Kind of, but on a massive industrial scale. And the really interesting part is the science behind the different methods being explored.
Right, because it's not just one size fits all. There are various approaches, and some of them get pretty wild. Like I was reading about this guy, Dr. Klaus Lackner.
Yes, Lackner's artificial trees.
Yeah, these massive structures designed to literally suck CO2 out of the air, like a high-tech forest.
It's fascinating, right? Scientists are looking at ways to mimic and even improve on nature's own processes.
And then there's this project in Iceland, Carpfix, I think it's called. That one blew my mind. They're turning CO2 into stone, like magic.
It sounds like it, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's carbon mineralization. Taking that captured CO2, reacting it with basalt rock, and creating a mineral that's stable, like for geological timescales.
So it's not just trapped underground, it's literally transformed into something completely inert.
It really gets you thinking, right, about what other kind of natural reactions or chemical processes could we leverage to help mitigate climate change. I mean, it's pretty exciting stuff.
Absolutely. And while capturing existing carbon is essential, we can't forget about the other side of the equation, right? Reducing how much we're emitting in the first place, and that's where renewable energy comes in solar, wind, hydro.
Yeah, and the landscape for renewables is changing so quickly. I mean, the sources we've been looking at, they point to the fact that solar energy is becoming increasingly cost competitive.
It's not just a feel-good option anymore, it's making economic sense in more and more places.
Exactly. And you can't talk about the push for renewables without mentioning companies like Tesla and Solar City, right? I mean, Elon Musk's vision is to create this entire sustainable energy ecosystem.
It's not just about electric cars, it's about making clean energy accessible to everyone.
That democratization aspect is huge.
Yeah.
It's about empowering individuals and communities to be part of this clean energy transition.
It's a pretty powerful idea. Okay, so we've talked about capturing carbon, we've talked about shifting to clean energy sources, but there's another area that's a bit more, well, controversial: geoengineering.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting and maybe a little bit sci-fi.
Right. It's about intentionally manipulating Earth's climate on a large scale, and that can feel a bit like playing with fire.
It does, and it's precisely why it generates so much debate. The sources specifically highlight solar radiation management, or SRM.
So this is the idea of reflecting sunlight back into space to cool the planet, right? Almost like putting up a giant sunshade.
That's the gist of it. But the implications are enormous. SRM might be able to lower global temperatures quickly, but it doesn't address the root cause, the buildup of greenhouse gases. And there were some serious ethical and political questions.
Like, who gets to decide if and when we do this, and what about potential unintended consequences for different regions of the world?
Exactly. One of our sources mentions Dr. David Keith at Harvard. He's researching these interventions, trying to weigh the potential benefits against the risks.
It's like walking a tightrope, right? And it highlights the need for extreme caution and a lot more research before we even consider large-scale deployment.
Couldn't agree more. It's a frontier of science that requires a very thoughtful and global approach.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's a little less, well, a little less controversial and definitely more in harmony with nature conservation and biodiversity.
Because while technology is crucial, We can't forget the power of nature itself in mitigating climate change.
Protecting and restoring our ecosystems is not just about saving pretty landscapes. It's about harnessing the planet's natural ability to absorb carbon.
Forests, wetlands, oceans, they all act as these massive carbon sinks, pulling CO2 out of the atmosphere naturally.
And it all ties together, right? I was struck by the mention of Jane Goodall's work with chimpanzees. It might seem like a separate issue, but her focus on the interconnectedness of species survival really underscores how important a healthy, diverse planet is for a stable climate.
It's all connected. A thriving ecosystem is more resilient, better able to adapt to climate change, and continue providing those essential services like carbon sequestration.
And speaking of interconnectedness, did you see that mind-blowing fact about the microorganisms in the soil?
Oh yeah, trillions of them in just a handful of soil. More than stars in our galaxy.
It's incredible. And they play a huge role in carbon cycling and keeping our soil healthy. It really makes you appreciate how even the tiniest parts of our environment are essential to the whole system.
It's a humbling thought, right? Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Carbon capture, clean energy, the complexities of geoengineering and the power of nature. But none of this will be truly effective without addressing the human factor.
Right. At the end of the day, it's our behaviors, our choices that have the biggest impact.
Technology gives us the tools, but it's our collective action that will determine their success. The sources emphasize things like reducing meat consumption, minimizing waste, making more sustainable choices in our everyday lives.
And it's not always about these huge lifestyle overhauls. Sometimes it's about subtle shifts in how we make decisions. The sources mention this fascinating concept from behavioral economics called nudges.
Yes, small changes in our environment or the way choices are presented can actually influence our behavior in a more sustainable direction.
Like putting plant-based options front and center in the grocery store or making recycling bins super accessible.
Exactly. When you scale those small nudges up, they can have a significant positive impact.
Just it's about making the sustainable choice the easy choice. Okay, so we've explored a whole range of potential solutions from cutting-edge tech to the power of nature and the importance of our individual choices. What's the takeaway here?
Well, I think the message that really comes through in the material is one of hope. There's a lot of incredible work being done, and with global cooperation and a commitment to innovation, we can tackle this challenge.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by the scale of it all, but looking at these advancements, these solutions, it's actually pretty inspiring.
It shows that we're not powerless. We have the knowledge, the tools, and the ingenuity to create a more sustainable future.
Absolutely. So, as you go about your day, we want to leave you with this thought. How do you see all of these pieces fitting together? The technology, the natural solutions, and our own actions. What are the most promising paths forward, and how do you see yourself contributing to this story? That's something for you to ponder. It's your deep dive to continue. So, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening.